Today, we have Sofina presenting about the adoption of laser land leveler and how it's affected by institutional arrangements. This is a presentation she gave at the Australian Economic Society a few weeks ago. So it's a presentation that has been given somewhere else, but not here. As you all know, she's a PhD student. So I don't think we have anyone from outside. Maybe you are from the school, right? Yeah. No? Yeah. Yeah. I have. So everyone knows who she is. Okay.
Thank you, Archibald. Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to present on do institutional arrangement of its adoption of laser land labeler in the Indo-Gangetic plains of India, a discrete time duration analysis. This study was guided by Verolarudzen, Archibald Hailu, Ram Pandit, and Jitendra Prakash Arya. Agriculture is one of the important sectors for Indian economy. Agriculture alone contributes around 16% to gross domestic product, provide livelihoods to 49% of the population, and ensures food security of 1.3 billion population of the country. However, retaining this food security and livelihood has become a challenge because of increasing competitive use of resources, including land, water, and labor from non-agriculture sectors. Water scarcity is one of the most limiting factors for ensuring food security because land limitation can be minimized by cropping system intensification and labor by mechanization, but there is no direct substitute for water. On top of that, declining groundwater table is a serious issue. Farmers rely on groundwater for irrigating their field, and almost 90% of fresh water withdrawn from the ground is used for agriculture, including irrigation and livestock production. And this problem will be further exacerbated by increasing temperature. Studies have estimated that 1% increase in temperature will lead to 10% increase in water demand in semi-arid and arid areas of Asia. Even though there is no direct substitute for water, using some modern technology can increase water use efficiency and reduce water loss during irrigation and produce more crops using uh, less water. And laser land labeler is one of that technology which is focused in this paper. Government of India is promoting laser land labeler by providing different kinds of support such as training and higher subsidy purchased by groups and sharing the responsibility of technology dissemination. Even though this technology was introduced in India 2 decades ago, its expansion has been limited to Western Indo-Gangetic plains. Therefore, there is a need for deeper understanding of dynamic processes and institutional factors that determine the large-scale adoption. Now, talking about the technology, laser land labeling is a process of smoothing the land surface using laser-equipped scraper for precision, resulting in the smoothed land to within 1 to 2 centimeters of its average elevation. Laser land labeling offers wide range of benefits, including both private and public. Laser land labeling reduces water use for irrigation, and studies have shown that laser label field requires 14 to 25% less irrigation water in rice and 13 to 37% less irrigation water for wheat. And it also reduces groundwater extraction by 24% in rice wheat system. And it also results in higher yield. Studies have found that laser labeled field increases yield by 4 to 6% for rice and 7 to 9% for wheat. And studies have also found that compared to traditionally labeled field, laser labeled field requires 754 kilowatt hour per hectare less electricity for irrigation per year in rice wheat system. And it also reduces greenhouse gas emission from irrigated fields, mainly by reducing pumping time required for irrigation, reducing tractor cultivation time, and improving fertilizer and water use efficiencies. Therefore, the aim of this study is to use discrete time duration analysis to examine the impact of institutional arrangements, socioeconomic, and plot characteristics on adoption timing or duration of to adoption of resource conserving technology using LLL as an example in Indo-Gangetic plains of India. There are many studies that have studied adoption of laser land labor. However, these studies have ignored how long it took farmers to adopt the technology once it is introduced. Therefore, these studies examine farmers' adoption decision at particular time using static binary logic or probit models to explain adoption decision at some particular time. Even though these studies have examined factors affecting adoption, these studies did not focus particularly on role of institutional arrangements in technology adoption process. And these studies were either on single crops such as rice or wheat or sugarcane or on rice wheat, only on rice wheat system. And studies in India were focused only on either Haryana or Punjab or Uttar Pradesh or Haryana and Punjab. Therefore, in this study, we try to reduce this gap by using discrete time duration analysis to study the time between the year when technology was introduced until the year farmer adopts it in their farm. And this model presents technology adoption as a dynamic process where farmers learn about technology over a period of time and adopt the technology when they feel the potential benefit of adoption is positive or greater than their current practice. And we focus on the role of institutional arrangements such as access to credit, access to rental market, in, still operating LLL, having agriculture institutional membership and subsidy in the adoption process. And this study covers all three states together, Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh, and covers broader cropping systems such as rice wheat, sugarcane wheat, cotton wheat, and vegetables. Uh, the data for this study was collected using multi-stage sampling. In the first stage, 7 districts were purposefully selected based on the cropping pattern of LLL adoption. And in the second stage, villages were selected based on the rice, wheat, vegetables, sugarcane, and cotton cultivation. And in the third stage, village census was carried out to get the list of adopters and non-adopters. And in the last stage, farm households were selected randomly from the village census. As I said before, this study was conducted in 3 states of India, Haryana, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh. Household survey was done in 1,000 household survey was carried out on 1,000 randomly selected sample households, and the detailed breakdown of the samples from each district is shown in this table. LLL was introduced in this area in 2001. The adopter to non-adopter ratio is 75 is to 25. Farmers rely on custom hire services for getting their field laser labeled. There are two types of service providers in the study area. One is cooperative based and another is the individual service provider. Cooperative based is popular in Punjab and individual service providers are popular in Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. Uh, uh, Rice wheat is the major cropping system in Karnal, Amritsar, Ludhiana, and sugarcane wheat in Yamunanagar, cotton wheat in Bathinda, and vegetables in districts of Uttar Pradesh. Farmers here rely on groundwater for irrigation, and they mostly do flooded irrigation in rice wheat system. There is no charge for electricity, no charge for water, but the electricity charge is flat if used for agriculture purpose, which is leading to groundwater decline. And between 1980 to 2008, the groundwater level have declined from 8 meters below ground level to 20 meters below ground level. And groundwater decline is a serious issue in the study areas. The dependent variable used for this study is the duration between the year when technology was introduced and the year farmer adopts the technology on their farm. Even though technology was introduced in 2001, it was reasonable for us to use 2005 as a starting point because before 2005, technology was used mainly for demonstration and was not readily available for farmers. In our data, there are also the cases where farmers have not adopted the technology at the end of survey period. So for that sort of data points, that duration is right censored. And there are also the cases where the preceders have adopted the technology and succeeders have continued with that. We do not include that sort of data points for analysis because we do not have information prior to the entry. Therefore, in our for study, we just use the right censored and adopters data. The dependent variable is coded as 0 for years prior to adoption and 1 at the point of adoption. Other independent variables are categorized into two, time variant and time invariant. Time invariant covariates into socioeconomic variables such as education, age, caste, farm size, plot characteristics such as soil fertility and land label, and farmers' perceptions about decline in groundwater and if they think this decline in groundwater will be a problem for them in the future. And institutional factors include training, access to credit, agriculture institutional membership, distance to rental market, source of information, and seen operating LLL in the field. And time variant covariant includes subsidy regime. Duration analysis examines the factor that explain the length of spell, where spell begins when the technology is introduced and spell ends when farmers finally adopt the technology in their field. Uh, and it is represented by the hazard function as shown in this equation 1, where ST is the steadiest probability of technology adoption, given that farmer has not adopted that technology before that time t. And capital T is the observed length of time in years. Small t is a particular value of t when adoption takes place. Capital FT is the cumulative distribution function of adoption event, and ST is the survival function. This hazard function can be expressed as a function of time represented by uh, S naught t theta and other covariates uh, x. In this equation, beta is a vector of unknown parameters expressed in exponential form to ensure that the hazard rate is non-negative. And the model with such a functional form is known as proportional hazard model, where the hazard ratio for any two individuals at particular time is constant. Uh, the, the proportional hazard model is the multiplicative functional form where covariates acts multiplicatively on the baseline hazard. So if we take the double log of this functional form, we transform it into the linear functional form and express as a complementary log-log model as shown in equation 3, where capital D is the time variable capturing the effect of duration dependence of baseline hazard, and E is the random error term following normal distribution and constant variation sigma square. We first present the result of baseline hazard model. Baseline hazard model tells when adoption is likely to occur. The model is constructed by using baseline hazard as a piecewise constant by including 3-time interval dummies. Specifying baseline hazard in a piecewise constant allows hazard to shift in a hazard to shift in different intervals, making model more flexible, which when augmented with other covariates give full semi-parametric model, which result I'll present in a while. Uh, in this in this table, we can see that the coefficient for time dummies are positive and significant, and the magnitude of the coefficient increases from one period to another, suggesting that likelihood of adoption increases as number of years increases. This is particularly because This lag occurs particularly because farmers accumulate information before taking adoption decision. And other reason could be that in later periods, the infrastructure required for technology adoption have been well developed. Now we present the result of full baseline hazard model, full model. We can see that the highlights here. The hazard ratio for access to credit, the agriculture institutional membership, seen operating and subsidy are greater than 1 and significant, and hazard ratio for distance to rental market is less than 1 and significant. The betas are expressed in exponential form, so the hazard ratio of 1 here implies no impact, greater than 1 implies positive impact, and less than 1 implies negative impact of covariates on the likelihood of adoption. For instance, the hazard ratio of 1.1 on access to credit implies that farmers who have access to credit are 1.1 times more likely to have adopted technology compared to the farmers who do not have. Similarly, the hazard ratio on distance to rental market indicates that farmers who are away from the rental markets are 2% less likely to have adopted the technology compared to the farmers who live near the market. And in terms of other time invariant institutional factors such as agriculture institutional membership and seen operating have positive impact on likelihood of adoption. And in terms of time invariant variable subsidy, the hazard ratio indicates that compared to no subsidy period, during the subsidy period, the adoption is nearly 3 times higher. Coming to conclusion, in this study, we saw whether institutional arrangements impact the adoption process, and we found that institutional arrangements significantly influence the speed of adoption of LLL. Positive impact of access to credit, agricultural institutional membership in operating and subsidy, and negative impact of distance to rental market suggests that government should focus on providing short-term credits to the farmer to speed up adoption and also to remove financial constraint, because farmers often postpone their technology adoption decision because of financial constraint. So the ways for doing this could be either giving easy access to microcredits or providing farmers with the voucher of some amount according to their price segmentation, so that they do not have to postpone the technology adoption decision. Membership to agriculture institution reduces adoption time by providing confidence to take risks. In a case where farmers do not have access to experimental field trials, agriculture institutions act as a technology incubation hub where potential adopters may subsequently learn from social network of innovators and develop better understanding of the technology. Therefore, governments should focus on strengthening and capacity building of agriculture institutions for improving the technology access, welfare in rural areas, and encouraging farmers to be the member of such institutions. LLL is a cost and skill intensive technology. And in the case of India, in a country like India, where majority farmers are small and poor, they cannot afford such expensive technology. And also it is not reasonable for them to buy this technology only for their self-use. Therefore, having access to rental market makes technology adoption possible without having to own it. So in the villages where there are no rental markets, the government should support farmers to come up as a group and form an integrated demand to get the service, and which will potentially increase enough demand for service provider to provide service in those sort of areas, and also to have a rental market in their own village. And rather than just sharing about technology, if farmers see the technology, how it works in the field, then it helps to bring a confidence to the farmers about the technology and remove any information barrier. So agriculture research organization and agriculture extension office should focus on uh, conducting demonstration in strategic location and also arranging farmers field visit uh, to remove the information barrier and doubts about new technology. And this can also be done to other potential stakeholders so that they become aware of the technology and provide necessary infrastructure required for making technology accessible to the farmers. As I said before, LLL is a cost-intensive technology. So without any financial support, many potential players in the service provider may not have ability to buy this technology. So providing some sort of financial support will help to reduce capital constraint. Recognizing this fact, Government of India is providing some subsidies. So the subsidy range from 15 to 30%, 15% if purchased by individual and 30% if purchased by local agriculture institutions. And government also provides training on how to use this. So providing subsidy to purchase LLL can increase the players in the rental market and enhance the service quality. But government should identify the hotspot areas where technology adoption is low and divert the resources. And unlike providing subsidy to seed and fertilizer, providing subsidy on machinery is a kind of asset transfer, which will increase the players in the rental market. Subsidy being important also means cost of adoption is important. Therefore, government should also focus on other ways of reducing the cost of adoption, such as investing in more efficient ways of producing and distributing the technology, and also, the government should focus on providing easy access to after-sales services such as repair and maintenance, and also work on availability of spare parts and training to the service providers. I would like to acknowledge ACIR, Australia Awards, UWA, and CIMIT for making this research possible. Thank you.
So, Sofina, so how often do the farmers have to level their land? Is it something that they have to do every season, or is it something that they can do, every 2 or 3 years?
So that depends on crops. So if they are doing the cereal crops, cotton and sugarcane, they can do once in 3 years. But if they are doing vegetables, they might have to do every year.
Because I wonder how much that plays into the time lag. If you only have to do it every 3 years, then it's only a decision that you have to make every 3 years, which can extend out that time lag. The other question I had is, since we're talking about that this is machinery, this is a service that these people are hiring. Was there a way in your study of looking at sort of the availability of these services on the market? Would adoption be affected by people seeing a scarcity in this machinery and saying, oh, this person's already booked up for the year. There aren't enough people with this, so they won't be able to get to me. So I just won't use this technology. And so I'm curious if there was a way of looking at both the availability of that technology, as well as the farmers' perceptions of maybe the competency or skill of the drivers for this machinery.
We did capture that during our focus group discussions, but I don't have specific data as such to include for the analysis. And we did found that farmers do have to postpone their technology adoption decision because it was not available on time. That's why distance to rental market plays an important role. So if there, and in some study areas, there are two service providers. So if one is fully booked, they go to another. But they go only to another where they prefer the first one because the driver is more competent, and if they do not have option, then only they go to other one, because the skill of driver is really important for leveling the field.
So in some ways that's captured in a small way in the distance to rental market area.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jumbo and then Michael. Are the two variables access to credit and the membership, the association membership, are these variables time variables?
Yeah, because in we have asked them during particular time. We don't have that data for over the period from 2005 to 2010. We have just asked if they have access to credit.
And the membership is, the question is framed at the time of the survey. So are you a member of that association now?
So we did have a question where we have asked, are you the member, and how many years you have been the member of that particular organization. But for the study purpose, we just use yes or no.
But my point is that the membership and the access to credit in order to explain the adoption of these. My feeling is that needs to be reported at the time of adoption or before. Were you a member before that? Do you have access to credit before that? That explains adoption. If you have adopted the technology and then you become a member, and then you find that you need to seek access to credit, that doesn't make sense. Right? That's my point. I don't know. Michael might have another.
Thank you.
As a comment, that's the standard property duration box. You always pick up the foot at the end. And ideally, you'd like to have known what their status was 30 years ago when they first adopted. Can't do it. Could be farm size still change. Can't do it. So it's standard.
But doesn't mean that you can frame the question in a way that you can address that. Because otherwise you can explain the membership of what I joined the association last year. I dropped the technology 10 years ago. And you're trying to say that my membership explains my adoption list.
You just need to go.
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
We call everything as far back as we can, but yeah, it's going to be hard to do. But ideally, on your results, you have the three dummy variables for different time periods. How were those time periods chosen? Are they policy regimes, or were they have you just picked those three time slots?
So D1 is the period where there was no policy for subsidy, and in D2, in 2008, the policy was started in Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, and in 2010, the subsidy was started in Punjab. So D3 is the full subsidy period, where all three states have subsidy.
So do those dummy variables differ according to which region you're in? So that only clicks in if the subsidy was in on your region, or are they just pure time for everybody?
Pure time for everybody.
Which you wanted to interact with your region, because for some of them, if the subsidy wasn't relevant in your region, 2000, if I'm a farmer, 2005-17, in a region where the subsidy wasn't relevant, the dummy shouldn't be clicking by hazard.
Okay, yeah, I got the question. So in the data, the dummy, the subsidy was coded 1 for 2000 from 2008 for Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, and for Punjab it was coded as 1 only from 2008.
No, I have a different. These three dummy variables seem to be about subsidy, but in the model that comes after, there's another subsidy variable. If you go to the next page.
Yeah.
So how do I read the subsidy variable when I also have three dummy variables? What's that? What's the subsidy variable doing?
When we have this time interval dummies, it indicates the subsidy information, but it also captures the number of service providers in the market. So in D1, there might not be enough service providers, but as demand increase, service provider might have increased. That's the limitation of our data. We do not have stock of service provider during this time period.
How is subsidy defined as a variable?
As 0 and 1.
And it varies across time,
Yeah.
and it also varies across location. Different for
Yeah.
different times.
So that means they are correlated.
But don't know how that, I don't know how that interacts with these three dummies. You seem to be describing the same thing, one for the dummies and one for the subsidy. And I don't.
I mean, these are very significant. It suggests that the dummy variables are picking up something different, in addition to what was picked up by the subsidy variable.
Subsidy is a continuous variable with actual amount, which is a
Oh
dummy.
no, it's just dummy.
Or just dummy.
So these dummies are capturing something more, which they are time breaks.
Yeah, not just subsidy, but capture all the things as well.
I would say, I wouldn't say not just subsidy, I would say not subsidy
Okay.
at all, because the subsidy's already been picked up in the subsidy variable.
Okay, I was just wondering now, what is your definition of adoption? For instance, if I'm thinking of a farmer who adapted at one point, they started to use the technology, and then they used once and they stopped. They never continued using it. So was that considered as adoption just because they used it once? What's your definition of adoption? How do you tell who's adapt and not to adapt?
For this kind of study, if we just see if farmers have adopted the technology, but do not consider if they have disadopted in
So
some
you
point
just
of time.
consider the first time, whether it was a trial or as long as they just use the technology once, then that is the time that we speak as when
They adopt.
adoption took place.
But from the field experiment, I do know that farmers continued with the technology. So it's adopted once in every 2 years or 3 years, but farmers do have adopted the technology over the period. But study doesn't see whether they have disadopted in after they have adopted.
One common criticism I have of studies that are a bit like this is that they don't distinguish between adoption and trialing.
Yes.
And they'll often look at trialing, sometimes subsidized trialing, and assume that it's adoption, and it's really not adoption at all. It's just collecting information about whether they should adopt. It seems to me that your situation is a little bit better because this is the type of technology for which a trial is more difficult. I guess you could trial it on a small area. Could
So
you?
minimum area required for trialing is around 0.2 acres because
That's quite a small area, although these are small, relatively small farms.
yeah. So for them it's a big area.
So I guess my comment is just it would be worth, in describing and discussing the results, it would be worth thinking about and talking about the difference between trial and actual enduring adoption. To follow up on what Nick said, because they are doing different things. You can trial without having made any commitment to continue to use it. Right? You're just collecting information.
Yeah, but in our data we have asked the farmers in how many plots they have and
Yeah.
in which plots they are
Yeah.
adopting that. So we know that it's not
That's great.
just.
I'm not saying you've done anything wrong. I'm just saying because this is a complexity
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
in the literature, it would be worthwhile talking about it and being clear that you understand the difference.
Mm.
The question is, yeah.
My query is also related with what they said. I can see that the total land holding didn't show any effect on the corruption, but the land size or let's say like plot size or parcel size. It's not about the land holding, but sometimes or mostly if you talk about Nepal, a farmer can have 1 acre or 2 acre of land, but the parcel, the plot size may not be that big where LLL could be operated because there are so many fragmented lands. So my point is, either did you look in that way whether the parcel size or plot size also not affect its adoption?
This for this study, not for this study. Generally, in India, in the study area, Haryana, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh, there was a land reforms and land consultation have happened. So farmers have their land somewhere nearby. So and they also had the land consultation in a means that they can exchange their land. If they have higher land somewhere, they can exchange the land with other farmers who are having small parcel and give them the another parcel which is far away. So that might, so in my study area, that's not the issue.
So are you convinced? So the land size might not be a big store, part of the store. Is that what you're saying? Could there be neighborhood effects like because this is people going around and giving a service? Is it possible that the people tend to hire the service if their neighbors are also getting the service? Maybe.
Yeah. So
is that possible to check?
Yeah. So that is captured by source of information. So source of information, one is if they have heard about the technology from formal source like agriculture extensions, service providers, sort of thing, and informal sources if they have heard about the technology from neighbors. But our results show that it's not significant.
Information source. So if they hear from neighbors or others, how many is that a dummy bar?
Yes, that's a dummy variable.
So it's one if what?
They have heard about the technology from the formal source, and 0 if they have heard about the technology from informal source.
Does your study recognize that it is investment and skills intensive? Do you think this technology is adaptable in the mountains where the harvesting
So for a mountainous area, there should be a small version that requires less horsepower tractor. Okay, let me begin again. So this technology requires a tractor of minimum 55 horsepower. For 55 horsepower, so it cannot be operated in a small area. So this technology was generally designed for the plain areas. But if somebody wants to take it to the mountainous or hilly areas, then they need to modify the technology. And in India, they have been doing that, but I don't know how far they are successful. So that their aim is to make this technology possible even in the hilly areas. But I don't know what's the progress on that.
Maybe just ask if there is anyone else who would like to ask a question. No? Okay, so I guess we can stop here. Thank you, Sofina, for being the first in the semester.